Story time! So when I was about 10 years old, I was depressed because my mom had recently passed and my sisters kept bullying me and my dad was literally the only person there for me. Fast forward 10 years later, I started dating. Remind you, I never dated anyone before because my past relationships never worked out. So I met this guy and a few months go past and he wanted me to marry him, so happily I said yes. My sisters finally decided to come down and see me and one of them ended up meeting my husband and she always looked at him like she had a crush on him, but I just brushed it off. So we were all having a conversation and I see that my sister goes upstairs to put her phone to charge. An hour passes and she finally comes back downstairs because her phone finished charging. She then asks my husband if he can give her his phone number so we can all keep in touch and he says yes. Fast forward a year later and I noticed that my husband starts acting differently. Like for example, one day he couldn't find his phone so he ended up buying 2 more phones for work. I asked him about it and he just told me not to worry. But one day I told my husband that I was going to work and I wouldn't be back home until 7. But before I left, I ended up putting a camera up so I could see what happened. Instead of going to work, I ended up going to my neighbor's house who was also my best friend. 4 or 5 minutes go past and I see a black car pulling up in my driveway and guess who it is? My sister. My husband lets her into the house so I checked the camera and I saw that they started doing things. I ran over to confront them crying and in disbelief. I'm now 23 years old and I don't talk to both of them. He's come back to say that he's sorry and he'll never do it again. But he's now married to my sister and they have 10 kids and I'm now married with someone else with 1 daughter.
Story time on how I was kidnapped by my insane dad. Okay, so boom. This all began at the time when I was 8 years old. So my teacher was off for whatever reason, so we had a substitute teacher. The substitute teacher ended up being my dad, but I didn't know he was my dad at the time. But I always had a bad feeling when I was by him. One day after class, my dad asked me to stay to talk to him. But because I always had a bad feeling about him, I just made up an excuse and told him that I couldn't stay after class. And even when I gave him that excuse, he told me just give him a second, but again, he was weird, so I got the fuck out of there. Anyways, the next day at school, we had free time, and the whole time, he was staring at me. It was actually almost my birthday, and I was passing out invitations to my classmates. Well, somehow he got a hold of one of my invitations. My birthday went by, and everything was fine until the next day. It was Sunday, and my mom was at work, and I was babysitting my 2 little sisters. And this is where it gets scary. Like for part 2 on how I was kidnapped by my insane dad. Okay, so boom, like I said, it was Sunday and my mom was at work and I was babysitting my 2 little sisters. When I went to go get my sisters a snack, I heard something. I got scared and I immediately called my mom on our emergency phone. She looked at the cameras and there was nothing there, but I kept on hearing something. So I took my mom's old flip phone and I grabbed my 2 little sisters. I brought them to my room in our secret crawl place and I gave my older little sister the flip phone. I told my little sister to stay there and to not come out until I come back, and that if I didn't come back, to call the police and stay hidden until the police came. I grabbed my bat and went downstairs, and guess who it was? My insane dad. So that's when he told me that he was my dad and that he had proof. So I went with him to get him away from my little sisters, and that's when he threw me into his truck. I texted my sister the signal before he took my phone. Like for part 3 on how I was kidnapped by my insane dad. Okay, so boom, like I said, my dad threw me into his truck. I was able to text my little sister to signal for help before he took my phone. About 20 minutes later, he stopped at a hotel. He again told me that I was his, and that's why he would stare at me so much, because he had to make sure. And then he said he had to make sure that I was his sacrifice, but I didn't understand what he was talking about. He was being very creepy. I ended up staying there with him for 6 days, where he was burning me with cigarettes and he was abusing me every day. But thank God, on the 6th day, the police was finally able to track me down. They were finally able to locate me and find me, and thank God they did, because my dad was actually planning on RIPing me. I ran to my mom, cried, told her I loved her, but I also told her that I did it to keep my sisters safe. Now he's in jail for 10 years, and he can't come within 100 feet of me or my family. My family moved to Florida with my stepdad, and now I'm expecting my little brother. Trust your instincts, guys.